Hello, here's the morning news. Leaders from Latin America and the Caribbean arrived in Venezuela from the 9th summit of the Petrocaribe bloc. Founded in 2005, the former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, Petrocaribe provides oil to Caribbean and Central American nations under preferential conditions in order to foster trade based on solidarity instead of competition. The summit will focus on creating a multilateral agenda with emphasis on advancing mechanisms for integration, cooperation, and economic development. Several events took place in Venezuela Thursday to mark the second anniversary since Hugo Chávez's passing. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and government officials took part in a function at the headquarters of the mountain, the former military barrack where Chávez launched in 1992 uprising, and the location of a memorial and remains. Chávez family members were also on hand and addressed the emotional event commemorating the revolutionary leader.
I trust that you are now in a better place where there is no pain, where there is no illness nor sadness, where your soul is truly at rest, and for having shared with us so much of your anxiety and worries that helped you find the peace you deserve so much.
More news. Representatives from the European Union and Cuba wrapped up meetings to fully restore relations Thursday. In this third round meetings, since the bloc dropped diplomatic sanctions in 2008, both Cuba and the European Union representatives said the meetings were positive. Future meetings are expected to delve deeper in areas such as trade and political dialogue. The European bloc said restoring of diplomatic relations between Washington and Havana makes European collaboration with the island easier. As peace talks between Colombia's government and FARC rebels continued in Havana Thursday, Colombian former intelligence chief María del Pilar Hurtado faced sentencing for spying of citizens and officials. Our correspondent Natalia Margarita has more from Bogotá.
Colombia's General Attorney Office has called for a 20-year jail sentence for former Chief of Intelligence María del Pilar Hurtado. Hurtado, who was the head of Colombia's Security Department during the presidency of Álvaro Uribe, has been convicted for illegal spying and interception of communications of human rights defenders, journalists, politicians, and even members of the Supreme Court who had been critical of Uribe. Last Friday, Colombian Supreme Court concluded that Hurtado was guilty of abuse of authority, wrongful and arbitrary acts, as well as unlawful violation of communications. But also former Uribe's Chief of Staff, Bernardo Moreno, was found guilty of requesting illegally obtained information from intelligence officials. As both close aides of former President Uribe have already been found guilty by the Supreme Court, we're still awaiting for the final sentencing, which according to the General Attorney's Office should be 10 years of jail for Moreno and 20 years of jail for María del Pilar Hurtado. This is the latest information from Bogotá. Natalia Margarita, teleSUR.
Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto is becoming increasingly isolated, with members of his own party expressing concern over his handling of a string of crises and scandals to new agencies. Peña Nieto's approval rating has slumped to 25% due to widespread concerns about violence and enforced disappearances, just as the country gears up for midterm elections in June. In Chile's second day of questioning independence scandal that has embroiled the politicians across the political spectrum, at the hearings of Chilean officials presented emails from Pablo Wagner, a former official during Sebastián Piñera's presidency, where he attempts to have a business associate appointed to the board of a state mining company. Wagner is just one of several Piñera officials accused in the case involving tax evasion, influence peddling, and bribery. In Argentina, there is increasing concern about the politicization of the judiciary. Some argue it is a means to destabilize the government. Our correspondent Laureano Ponce has more.
At the opening of the judicial year, the Supreme Court of Argentina released a video reminding different publicly known victims of several homicides. The video included deceased prosecutor Alberto Nisman, contradicting the evidence of the investigation, which leads to the hypothesis of suicide.
What happened with this video is that from a while ago, the Supreme Court, through its Information Center website, have come to the realization that they have a powerful communication tool. Through this, the court can put forward its opinions, as it always has, because the judiciary branch does not always express itself verbally.
In recent years, many judges and prosecutors have made questionable decisions because they have prioritized attacking the government of Cristina Fernandez.
Thinking that the judiciary branch is something homogeneous, tight, always acting apolitically and according to the written law is naive. And what we can see these days, and these relevant rulings show more than ever, is that currently legal discourse is just one of the social discourses that force us to rethink seriously what is happening in society.
Historically, it has been that in a Republican state, the judiciary branch does not interfere in politics, but the current situation in Argentina goes against this concept.
No matter what our political ideology is, what we cannot do is hide it, so we have to act according to an ideology. We live in a society, we live in a world, we have political, religious, ethical ideas, and those ideas show through in our judicial activity, our statements, whether acting as advocates or as a prosecutor.
Despite the dismissal of the charges against Cristina Fernandez decided by Judge Daniel Rafecas, the prosecutor Gerardo Policita decided to appeal the case, leaving it in the hands of the Court of Appeals, which has a clear opposition bias to the national government. From Buenos Aires, Laureano Ponce, teleSUR.
Modern America, following the schism by the U.S. Department of Justice regarding racial discrimination in Ferguson, Missouri's police department, the family of one of the victims has launched a suit against the officers. Attorneys for the family of Michael Brown, the unarmed African-American teen who was killed by police officer Darren Wilson last August, said they will file a civil suit for the boy's death. Lawyers for the Brown family confirmed that the city of Ferguson and former police officer would be named in the suit. Despite the report's findings, the Department of Justice did not press civil rights charges on Officer Wilson.
You would get a more clearer, a more accurate.
Leaks by whistleblower Edward Snowden revealed that New Zealand is conducting mass surveillance over its Pacific neighbors, including powerhouse Indonesia, and sharing the intelligence with international allies. The former U.S. military contractor said New Zealand's electronic spy agency has intercepted calls, emails, and social media messages from Pacific nations and shared the information with the U.S. National Security Agency, as well as those in Australia, the UK, and Canada.
Has breached the
Despite efforts to derail talks regarding Iran's nuclear program, meeting went ahead again in Switzerland this Friday. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and the Nigerian Foreign Minister Mohamed Javad Zarif met in the Swiss town of Montreux for their sixth round of discussions aimed at reaching an agreement on the country's nuclear program. According to diplomatic sources, Washington urged Iran to stay away from gathering enough fuel to create a nuclear weapon for at least a year. However, representative progress made could mean a deal to be reached by the end of March. In Barcelona, 30 dozen turned out to show support for 8 Spaniards detained on February the 27th after returning from fighting as volunteers alongside the forces of self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. Members of the Catalan Solidarity Committee with anti-fascist Ukraine said the detained were fighting to protect people in the eastern Ukraine territories from attacks by the far-right government in Kyiv. And after ongoing concerns about animal rights, one of the world's most famous circuses has announced it will no longer use elephants in the shows. Ringling Brothers and Barnett and Bailey Circus announced it will eliminate the use of elephants in the dubbed the greatest show on earth since its inception nearly a century ago. Company representatives said that the 13 Asian elephants will live at the company's 200-acre Center for Animal Conservation in Central Florida after they phased out a circus by 2018. A critically acclaimed director has wrapped up filming for a documentary on Uruguay's José Pepe Mujica just days after the popular president finished his term leading the South American country. Two-time Palme d'Or winner and the Cannes Film Festival, Emir Kusturica, spoke to journalists about the documentary's making on the left-wing leader who is recognized worldwide for his austere lifestyle and progressive policies.
Or somebody I've never seen before in my life. Where else did you see the president goes from the office and people are getting crazy, expressing love and being touched? This is what I don't know. I'm 60 years old and I've never seen this.
More these and other stories on our website, teleSUR.tv.net/English. Have a nice weekend.